What if the very first thing you spoke each morning had the power to change your whole day? What if, before your feet even touched the floor, you reminded your soul who your God is, your light, your salvation, your stronghold? That's exactly what Psalm 27 invites you to do. It's not just a poetic line, it's a declaration of faith, a weapon of truth against the rising tide of fear, confusion, and chaos. Psalm 27 isn't written for people who live easy lives. It's written for those who wake up with battles to fight, within and without. It's for the hearts that carry yesterday's pain into today's sunrise, for the souls who stare into uncertainty and wonder how they'll make it through. This psalm begins with a cry of confidence. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" Those words cut through the noise like a sword. They remind us that when God is present, fear loses its grip. Light pierces the darkness. Salvation lifts despair. Strength replaces weakness. And when you start your day with that kind of truth, everything shifts. Think about it. How do you usually wake up? Do you open your eyes and immediately feel overwhelmed by unfinished tasks, bills, or yesterday's regret? Or do you wake up aware of God's mercy, which is new every morning, fresh as the sunrise? Because the way you begin your day often sets the direction for how you walk through it. Psalm 27 calls you to begin not with fear, but with faith, not with panic, but with purpose. It invites you to speak courage into your own soul before the world even gets a chance to speak confusion over you. And it does so with power. David doesn't whisper or suggest. He declares, "The Lord is my light and my salvation." That is a bold faith. He doesn't say, "Maybe God will help me today," or "I hope he's with me." No, he says with unshakable certainty, "The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" That's the kind of statement that turns trembling into triumph, and David knew what he was talking about. This psalm wasn't written from a palace of comfort. It was written from the perspective of a man who had been hunted, hated, and betrayed. A man who had experienced rejection and faced life-threatening danger. Yet despite all of that, he didn't let his circumstances define his faith. Instead, he let his faith define how he saw his circumstances. He had enemies, but he had even greater confidence. He had battles, but he had a greater refuge. That's what made David so powerful, not the absence of trouble, but the presence of God. So, what about you? What if you chose, starting tomorrow, to wake up and declare Psalm 27 aloud before anything else? Before you scroll your phone, before the emails, before the headlines, you speak the truth. You say, "The Lord is my light. He is my salvation. He is my stronghold. Whom shall I fear?" And then let that declaration become the banner over your day. Because the world will try to pull you in 100 directions. The demands of life will rush in like a flood. The whispers of the enemy will try to distract you before your feet even hit the ground. But Psalm 27 lifts your eyes to something higher, to someone greater. It reminds you that God is not a distant observer. He is not some disconnected deity watching from above. He is your defender, your refuge, your safe place. He doesn't check in once in a while. He doesn't protect you only when it's convenient. He's always present, always strong, always faithful. That's why these words have the power to recenter your heart every single day. Instead of waking up in a panic, wake up in praise. Instead of letting dread guide your decisions, let trust. In God's strength, anchor your spirit. Instead of spiraling into worry, rise into worship. When you open your eyes and remember who God is, you gain strength to face what the day may bring, whether it's conflict, uncertainty, or unexpected challenge. We live in a world full of uncertainty. The news is filled with conflict. Economies rise and fall. Friendships get tested. Families go through storms. Every day we face situations that are completely out of our control. And yet, Psalm 27 offers us a place to stand, a place that cannot be shaken. David writes, "The Lord is the stronghold of my life." In ancient times, a stronghold wasn't just a safe place, it was a fortress, a walled city built to withstand attack. It represented strength, security, and protection when everything else was vulnerable. But David wasn't trusting in man-made walls. He wasn't leaning on stone or strategy. He was trusting in the living God. And that same God is your fortress today. So when the world feels like it's falling apart, you don't have to. When everything is shaking, you don't have to tremble. When storms rage outside your window, you can rest in the unchanging presence of God. He's not surprised by what happens today. He's not shaken by what you're facing. He's not panicking. When life feels uncertain, he is steady, sovereign, and always in control. And that's why Psalm 27 isn't just nice, it's necessary. Start your day anchored in the truth. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? You are held right now by the one who has never failed and never will. Just picture stepping into your day with that kind of unwavering confidence. While others wake up, weighed down by anxiety, you rise in faith. While the world trembles with uncertainty, you walk in unshakable peace. You don't have to be ruled by breaking headlines. You don't have to be consumed by fears of tomorrow or carried away by what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. You have a stronghold, not made of stone or steel, but something far greater, the Lord himself. So before you open the news app, before you scroll through the noise, before fear gets a chance to speak, let truth speak first. Let Psalm 27 be your foundation. Let it rise in your spirit like a war cry at sunrise. Declare it over your day. Say it out loud. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Because when God is your stronghold, no storm can move you, no trial can uproot you, and no chaos can rob you of peace. Fear is a thief. But faith is a fortress. Each day, fear tries to sneak in through the cracks. It creeps in quietly. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of what might go wrong. It often starts in those early moments, when the house is quiet, when your mind begins to wander, and worry whispers, "What if?" But Psalm 27 arms you with truth. It reminds you that fear holds no power where faith in God stands strong. David didn't write this psalm from a mountaintop vacation. He had enemies. He faced real danger, but still he stood and declared, "Whom shall I fear?" This wasn't blind positivity. This was battle-tested confidence. David didn't find strength in himself. He found it in the unshakable presence of God. That's why he didn't tremble. That's why fear couldn't grip him. He knew who was with him, and that same presence, the presence of the Almighty, is with you right now. Fear drains you. It steals your joy. It paralyzes your purpose. It makes you pause when God is calling you to move forward. It turns molehills into mountains and magnifies the size of the problem instead of the power of your provider. But faith builds walls around your heart. It becomes a shield, a refuge, a place where peace reigns no matter what's happening around you. So when you wake up and begin your day with Psalm 27, you're doing more than reading a verse. You're making a choice. You're declaring, "I will not live in fear today. I will walk by faith. I will trust the Lord, my light, my salvation, my stronghold." Now think, how different could your day be if you gave faith the first word? What if, instead of dreading what could go wrong, you declared, "My God is in control"? What if, instead of avoiding the fight, you stepped into it, knowing the Lord was already fighting for you? That's the power of Psalm 27. It doesn't just speak hope. It reshapes your perspective. It shifts your focus from the height of your fear to the majesty of your God. No enemy, no situation, No unknown future is greater than the God who walks beside you. So today, let faith rise, let the fortress of trust in your heart grow strong, because fear might still knock. But when your soul is anchored in God, it won't find a place to stay. Psalm 27 is a call to unshakable trust in the face of adversity. Life is unpredictable. Sometimes you see the storm coming. Other times it hits without warning. Unexpected news, unexpected loss, battles you never thought you'd face. There are moments when it feels like everything is working against you, and the enemy whispers, "You won't make it through this." But this psalm, it was written for that kind of moment, not for those with easy lives, but for those in the heat of the battle, for the weary, for the wounded, for those who need a rock to cling to when everything else is shaking. David writes, "Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war arise against me, yet I will be confident." What kind of confidence is that? It's not wishful thinking. It's not human optimism. It's not pretending everything is okay. It is holy confidence, immovable trust in the living God. David wasn't blind to the danger. He saw it clearly, but he chose not to be defined by it. His strength wasn't in pretending the battle wasn't real. It was in knowing his God was bigger. So now it's your turn. When trouble rises, when people turn on you, when your plans fall apart and the road ahead is unclear, will you panic? Or will you pause? Will you collapse under the pressure? Or will you cling to the promise? Because if your trust is in the Lord, your stronghold, then even in the storm you can stand strong. Continuing the message of unshakable trust, Psalm 27 now invites us to go even deeper, not just to stand firm in faith, but to press into the presence of God. Trust, you see, is not a passive feeling. It's a deliberate choice. Psalm 27 teaches us that trust means believing, even in the midst of battle, that God is still in control. It's deciding with every fiber of your being that no matter how loud the enemy shouts or how fierce the storm rages, God's power is greater than anything you're facing. Every morning when you rise, a decision awaits you. Will you allow fear to lead, or will you choose faith? Will adversity cause you to run from God or drive you closer into his arms? Psalm 27 reminds us that real trust isn't grounded in what our eyes can see, because what we see often looks chaotic, uncertain, and overwhelming. True trust is grounded in who God is, and he is faithful. He is strong. He is the fortress that never falls, the foundation that never cracks, and the refuge that never moves. So when the battle comes, and it will, don't retreat. Stand your ground. When enemies surround you and fear knocks at the door, don't open it. Instead, lift up your eyes. Look toward the one who fights for you. Because even in the thick of adversity, when your trust is in the Lord, you will not be shaken. There will be moments we all face when life feels unbearably lonely. Times when even those closest to us don't truly understand the battles we're fighting internally, when our pain is invisible, when our burdens are heavy but silent, when fear whispers in the dark and no one seems to notice. But Psalm 27 speaks into those very moments. It reminds you of something incredibly profound. Even if the whole world turns its back on you, God never will. David writes in verse 10, "Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will take me in." Pause and let that sink in. The love of a parent is one of the most powerful forces on earth. Yet David says, even if that love fails, God's love will not. His presence is constant. His love is unshakable. His commitment to you is eternally secure. Loneliness is one of the enemy's most effective weapons. He wants you to believe you're forgotten, that you're invisible, that no one sees your pain or understands your struggle, that you're abandoned. But Psalm 27 demolishes that lie. Even in your darkest, most isolated moments, you are not alone. The God who placed the stars in the sky stands beside you. The Lord who holds the universe together is walking with you even now. You may feel unseen, but he sees every tear. You may feel like you're fighting your battles alone, but he goes before you. You may feel rejected by people, but you are chosen by God. And his presence? It's not based on your emotions. It's anchored in his eternal promise. So when you wake up in the morning before the world speaks fear into your heart, before doubt begins to settle, speak this truth to yourself. I am never alone. Let Psalm 27 speak before the news, before your phone notifications, before the mental to-do list crowds your mind. Let it remind you, you are not forgotten, you are not forsaken, you are his. No matter who walks away from your life, no matter who misunderstands you, no matter how long and lonely the road feels, the Lord will take you in. And that is enough. Every new day begins with 1,000 voices competing for your attention. From the moment you open your eyes, notifications buzz, messages pile up, emails flash, and yesterday's worries creep back in. Our thoughts start racing toward deadlines, demands, and distractions. But Psalm 27 calls us to pause, to realign our focus, to seek what truly matters first. David writes in verse 4, "One thing I ask of the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple." Did you catch that? One thing. Not 10 things. Not everything all at once. David had power, responsibility, enemies, pressures, but he narrowed his heart's desire down to one thing, to be with God. He longed to dwell in God's presence, not visit occasionally, not check in once a week, but live there. He wanted to behold the beauty of the Lord, not just ask for things, but delight in who God is. That was his anchor. That was the source of his strength. Imagine how different your mornings and your life would be if your first pursuit wasn't the noise of the world, but the presence of the Lord. What if the first thing you sought was not your schedule, but his face? Psalm 27 calls us back to the center, to that sacred space where we meet with God and everything else fades, to the dwelling place of peace, purpose, and perfect love. Building on David's deep desire to dwell in God's presence, Psalm 27 now turns our attention to the power of spiritual priority, choosing God above all else, especially in the quiet moments that begin our day. David didn't ask for wealth, comfort, or an easier life. He didn't crave applause or power. He longed for one thing, and one thing only, to be with God. Let that sink in. In a world where so many people chase after everything but God, David chased after his presence. He knew that all the riches in the world, all the achievements and comforts would never satisfy the deepest need of the human soul like the presence of the Lord. How would your mornings change if you longed for God the way David did? What if, instead of reaching for your phone the moment you opened your eyes, you reached for the Word of God? What if, instead of scrolling through headlines, you sat in silence before the King of Kings? What if, instead of beginning the day in stress, anxiety, or distraction, you began it in surrender? Seeking God first doesn't mean ignoring your responsibilities. It doesn't mean neglecting your to-do list or abandoning your schedule. It means anchoring your spirit in something far deeper, in someone far stronger. It means recognizing that all the planning, striving, and pushing can't give you what a moment in God's presence can: clarity, peace, and power. Psalm 27 calls us to realign our hearts. When we seek God first, the day looks different. We don't face it with anxiety. We step into it with assurance. We don't react to challenges in fear. We respond in faith. We don't chase after temporary things. We pursue the one who is eternal. So let this be your quiet prayer before the world gets loud. Lord, before I do anything else, I seek you. Before I make any decision, I seek your wisdom. Before I step into the noise, I rest in your peace. Because when you begin with him, everything else begins to fall into place. We live in a culture that constantly tells us to rely on ourselves. We're told to be independent, self-sufficient, strong, push harder, try more, solve it on your own, be your own answer. But if we're honest, we all hit that wall eventually. The moment when our strength gives out, the moment when our motivation runs dry, the moment when the burden becomes too heavy to carry alone. That's why Psalm 27 is so powerful. It redirects our confidence away from ourselves and back to the only true source of strength, the Lord. David writes, "The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" A stronghold isn't just a shelter, it's a fortress, a place of defense, a refuge where the enemy cannot reach. And David wasn't boasting about his own might, he was pointing to God's. This is the same David who fought off lions and bears in the wilderness. The same David who stood before Goliath with nothing but a sling and 5 smooth stones. The same David who fled from King Saul's relentless pursuit, hiding in caves, sleeping in deserts, living on the run. Through all of it, David never claimed his skill as his security. His weapons weren't his confidence. His wisdom wasn't his strength. God was, and David knew it. How often do we try to fight life's battles on our own terms? We strategize, we overthink, we carry burdens silently, telling ourselves, "I've got this," but deep down, we're exhausted. We're overwhelmed. We're tired of trying to be strong enough. Psalm 27 whispers to our weary souls, you don't have to do it alone. The same God who upheld David upholds you. The same God who met David in the wilderness meets you in your weakness. The same God who was David's fortress is your fortress too. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, don't rush into the day carrying it all by yourself. Don't lean on your own understanding. Lean into his wisdom. Place the weight of your day into his hands. Because when the Lord is your stronghold, you don't have to be afraid. When he is your strength, you won't be shaken. When he is your source, you already have everything you need to face what's coming. There's a hunger in every human heart, a deep longing, a quiet ache. People try to fill it with money, relationships, success, entertainment, but somehow it's never enough. The craving always returns. That's because the soul was never made to be satisfied by the things of this world. Psalm 27 reveals the answer to that hunger. It's not found in achievement or accumulation. It's found in abiding. David writes, "One thing have I asked of the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple." There's something breathtakingly simple and powerful in that verse. David's heart was fixed. His pursuit was singular. He didn't want everything. He just wanted one thing, to be with God, to dwell, to gaze, to seek, not to perform, not to impress. Just to be in the presence of the one who satisfies every longing and quiets every storm. And that's the invitation of Psalm 27. To let your soul return to its true home. To let your life be built not on sand, but on the solid rock of God's presence. What if the deepest desire of your heart wasn't for success, comfort, or control, but simply to be close to God? David, the mighty warrior and king, once stood on battlefields, led armies, ruled over nations. Yet when he opened his heart in Psalm 27, he revealed one longing above all others: to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to dwell in his temple. That wasn't poetry, it was his purpose. He didn't ask for more victories, wealth, or fame. He asked for presence. What about us? Do we wake up with that kind of hunger? Or do we rush into the day, scrolling, stressing, and striving before we've even acknowledged the one who holds it all together? Psalm 27 reminds us, we were made for his presence. That's where peace replaces pressure. That's where joy is restored, not just felt. That's where the restlessness of our souls finds its true home. And no, this isn't about living inside a church building or withdrawing from the world. It's about walking through life in communion with the God who created you. It's about letting him be your first conversation, your truest comfort, your greatest pursuit. When you start your day saying, "Lord, above all else I want to know you more," something changes. The chaos around you begins to lose its grip. The distractions of the world fade. You stop chasing temporary pleasure and start walking in eternal fulfillment, because the more you seek him, the more you realize he is the treasure your heart's been aching for. So let that be your morning cry. God, let me dwell in your presence today. Let me see your beauty. Let me hear your voice. Walk with me through every moment. That's where strength comes from. That's where we are made whole. Life, however, doesn't always feel sacred. It gets hard. Really hard. There are days when the sky turns grey and storms roll in without warning. Grief that knocks the wind out of you, sickness that drains your joy, battles that don't seem fair. Maybe you're walking through one now. But even in the darkest valleys, Psalm 27 offers a promise. God himself will be your shelter. David wrote, "In the day of trouble, he will hide me in his shelter. He will conceal me under the cover of his... He will lift me high upon a rock." These aren't just comforting lines. They are the lived truth of a man who had slept in caves, fled from enemies, and faced death more times than he could count. Through all of it, David knew his hope wasn't in walls or weapons. It was in God's presence, and the same is true for you. When anxiety closes in, when fear feels relentless, when life overwhelms, God invites you to run to him. Not just to believe he's there, but to actively seek his covering. Because here's the truth, a shelter can only protect you if you step inside. That's why you must begin your day beneath the canopy of his word, his peace, his promises. Don't face the storm alone. Don't try to fight the wind and waves with sheer willpower. Let him be your hiding place. Let him lift you when you feel like you're sinking. Let him quiet the storm, not always outside of you, but most powerfully within you. In him you are hidden. In him you are held. But here's something we often forget. We want God's promises, but not always his pace. We live in a fast world. Everything around us demands urgency. Fast results, fast relief, fast success. But the final verse of Psalm 27 slows us down with a powerful reminder. Wait for the Lord. Be strong. Let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. Waiting is hard. Waiting feels like silence. It feels like being overlooked. It feels like nothing is happening. But in God's kingdom, waiting is never wasted. He is not ignoring you. He's preparing you. He's shaping something deeper in your heart than a quick answer ever could. While you're waiting, he's working, building endurance, deepening your roots, strengthening your faith. And yes, the enemy will try to whisper lies in those quiet places. God's forgotten you. Nothing will change. Why bother praying? But Psalm 27 shouts back with truth. God has not left you. He is faithful in the waiting. He will come through. So today, as you face the unknown, hold fast to this. The presence of God is your anchor. His word is your shelter. His timing is perfect. Even when the answer is wait, it is never a delay in love. Take courage. He sees you. He knows you. And he is coming through right on time. But remember what we saw in the last passage. God is our shelter in the storm. And now, Psalm 27 brings us deeper into the lesson. Waiting on God is not a delay of purpose, it's a preparation for destiny. Have you ever felt stuck in a season that just won't end? Like you're praying, believing, doing everything you know how, and yet nothing changes? That's the moment where many give up. But Psalm 27 reminds us that waiting is not a pause in your story. It's a part of the process. David understood this better than most. He was anointed king as a young man, but he didn't wear the crown until years later. In between the promise and its fulfillment were long, grueling days of hiding, fleeing, and surviving. He could have questioned God, he could have walked away, but instead David waited, and in that waiting he was refined. Waiting on the Lord isn't passive. It's not sitting back and doing nothing. It's actively trusting. It's choosing to believe that even in silence, God is speaking. Even in stillness, He is moving. It's praying even when the answer hasn't come, worshipping even when the breakthrough is distant, and resting even when your heart is anxious. So, if you're in a season of delay, hear this. Don't let frustration lead you to fix things your way. Don't try to force open doors God hasn't unlocked. Instead, strengthen your heart in Him. Be still, yes, but be still with purpose. God is never late. He is always on time, even when His clock doesn't match yours. Those who wait on the Lord will rise refreshed, not because they avoided the wait, but because they endured it with faith. And as David moves forward in the psalm, he shifts from waiting to worshipping in victory. He writes, "And now my head shall be lifted up above my enemies all around me. I will offer in His tent sacrifices with shouts of joy. I will sing and make melody to the Lord." Notice the confidence here. There is no maybe, no if things go well. David speaks like the victory is already won, and that's the kind of faith that moves mountains. It's not arrogance. It's not pretending like there's no battle. It's knowing who your God is in the middle of it. David wasn't stronger than his enemies. He didn't have more resources, more manpower, or more influence. What he had was trust. Trust that God had already gone before him. Trust that God's promises would not fail. Trust that the battle was not his to win alone, but God's to overcome through him. How different would our lives look if we carried that same posture into our daily fights? So many times we approach life already feeling defeated. We look at the odds, the bills, the diagnosis, the betrayal, and we shrink back. But Psalm 27 challenges us. Lift your head, not because of your own strength, not because everything is suddenly easy, but because you belong to the God who lifts heads, who defeats enemies, who walks with you through the darkest valleys. Victory isn't about escaping the storm. It's about praising God in the middle of it. It's about singing when the answer hasn't come. It's about declaring His faithfulness when all you have are promises. Worship becomes your weapon, and faith becomes your banner. Because the truth is, God never promised you a life free from hardship, but He did promise His presence in every hardship. He never said you wouldn't face battles, but He said you wouldn't face them alone. And when the breakthrough finally comes, and it will come, your response won't be boasting in yourself. It will be falling to your knees in praise, knowing it was God who carried you, God who defended you, God who lifted your head above your enemies. So, as fear creeps in, trying to steal your peace, your joy, your boldness, stand firm. Lift your head, and let Psalm 27 be your anthem. I will sing and make melody to the Lord, not after the storm, but in it, not because it's easy, but because He is worthy, not because you see the full picture, but because you trust the painter. Let this be the day your confidence returns, not in your ability, but in the unshakable presence of your God. Even as we remember God's victories in our past, the battle against fear continues each day. Fear cripples faith. It sneaks in silently, whispering lies into our minds, telling us the worst is yet to come, magnifying small concerns into looming giants. It convinces us we're fighting alone, that no one sees, and that no one will come to help. But Psalm 27 doesn't begin with fear. It starts with a bold, unwavering declaration. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Think about that image for a moment. Light and darkness cannot share the same space. The moment light enters, darkness flees. That's what happens when God steps into our situation. His presence dispels fear. His light exposes the lies. His salvation removes every doubt that tries to hold us captive. David, who wrote this psalm, was no stranger to fear. He had enemies chasing him, friends betraying him, and dangers surrounding him on every side. Yet, with complete confidence, he declared, "Whom shall I fear?" He didn't pretend the threats weren't real. He just knew his God was greater. And now, let's bring that question to your heart. What fears are trying to steal your peace? Are you afraid of what tomorrow holds? Of failure, of rejection, of loss? Whatever fear you're carrying, remember this: it cannot remain where God's presence dwells. The moment you place your trust in Him, fear is stripped of its power. It's exposed for what it truly is, an empty threat. But there's a condition. Here you must choose to remain in the light. You must actively resist the enemy's voice and fill your mind instead with God's promises. Declare this truth daily. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Fear has no hold on me. That declaration isn't just words. It's a spiritual weapon. When fear tries to rise, you rise higher. You remind yourself that the same God who stood with David stands with you. And if God is your light, then darkness has no home in your life. Walk forward today, not timidly, not hesitantly, but boldly. Walk as one who has already been rescued, because the Lord is your salvation. Whom then shall you fear? Still, we all face those moments where fear takes a different form: silence. You've prayed, you've cried, and yet heaven seems quiet. No answer, no shift. And the questions begin. Is God even listening? Has He turned His face from me? Psalm 27 speaks right into that silence. David cried out, "Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud. Be gracious to me and answer me." This wasn't a formal prayer. This was a desperate cry from the depths of someone who knew that if God didn't respond, there was no other hope. And David knew something powerful. God hears His children. Yes, David, this warrior, this king, this man after God's own heart, still cried out with raw need. He didn't pretend to be self-sufficient. He didn't let pride keep him silent. He knew the most powerful thing he could do in his weakness was simply lift his voice to heaven. And how often do we carry our burdens in silence? How often do we believe the lie that we have to be strong on our own, that maybe our problems aren't worth bringing to God? Psalm 27 dismantles that lie. It assures us that when we cry, He listens. When we whisper prayers no one else hears, He hears them all. He may not always answer the way we expect or when we want, but He always responds in love. So don't stop praying. Don't stop seeking. Don't let silence your faith. Keep knocking, because the door will be opened. Keep crying out, because the Father hears. You are not forgotten. You are not ignored. You are seen, heard, and deeply loved. And here's perhaps the most tender part of this entire psalm. David writes, "Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will take me in." Let that sink in. He names the most intimate kind of human abandonment, the love of a parent, and says even if that fails, God will not. He will receive you. He will embrace you. He will take you in and call you His. That's the heart of your Father in heaven. Even when everyone else fades from your life, God never does. His love isn't conditional. His presence isn't fleeting. He doesn't come and go like people do. He is unchanging, steady, eternal, the same yesterday, today, and forever. David knew what it felt like to be abandoned. He had been chased by his enemies, betrayed by those closest to him, and even misunderstood by his own family. But despite it all, he clung tightly to a truth that never failed him. God never left. And friend, that same promise is yours today. Maybe you've been through seasons that left you feeling invisible. Maybe you've walked through days when it felt like no one noticed your pain. Maybe you've wondered if even God had turned His face away. But hear this: He is still with you. He has not abandoned you, and He never will. When life falls apart, when relationships end, when loneliness grips your heart like a heavy fog, Hold on to this unshakable promise. The Lord will take me in. When people fail, God stands firm. When everything changes, His love stays the same. When the world grows uncertain, He remains faithful. So today, take heart. You are not alone. The same God who stood beside David stands beside you now. The same God who never failed then will never fail you now. He walks with you through every valley, through every shadow, and through every storm. And here's where hope rises like the morning sun. Hope is not just wishful thinking. It's not some vague, fragile dream. Hope is powerful. It gives strength when you're weak, light when the night feels endless, and courage when the battle rages long. But hope must be placed in the right hands. If your hope is in people, you'll be let down. If it's in money, it can vanish. If it's in circumstances, they'll shift like sand beneath your feet. But Psalm 27 invites us to place our hope in the one who never changes, our God. David declared, "I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." He wasn't speaking in vague terms. He wasn't just hoping things might eventually work out. He was confident. He believed with all his heart that God's goodness wasn't some distant dream. It was a present, living reality. And that same faith is offered to you today, even if the struggle continues, even if the healing hasn't come yet, even if the road ahead looks unclear. You can still say, "I will see the goodness of God." Because faith is not about feeling good when everything is going right. It's about believing in God's goodness even when nothing makes sense. It's about declaring hope before the answer comes. So lift your head today. Refuse to let discouragement take root. Hold fast to the truth that your God is working behind the scenes, aligning every detail for your good. He is not finished. He is not distant. He is not late. And His plans for you are still unfolding. The world may tremble with uncertainty, but your hope in Him is immovable. So keep walking, keep trusting, keep believing. Because just like David declared, you will see the goodness of the Lord in your life. Psalm 27 is not just poetry. It is a lifeline, a foundation, a battle cry of faith. It's the reminder that you are not walking through this life alone. Let it shape the way you wake up each day. Start not in fear, but in faith. Start not with worry, but with worship. Start not with the news, but with the truth. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? When fear knocks, you don't have to answer. When the storm hits, you have a shelter. When life gets too heavy, you don't have to carry it alone. He is with you. He hears you. He is working for you. So stand strong. Wait on the Lord. Trust in His promises. And above all, never stop seeking Him. Because those who place their hope in the Lord will never be disappointed.